We were forced to be in the locker room with Thomas, and multiple girls on the team had expressed feeling uncomfortable with that. If we had any problems with that, they were providing the counseling and psychological services that Penn had and the transgender center or the LGBT center. And they told us that if we had a problem with it, we could go talk to them, kind of implying that we had something wrong with us for believing that it was wrong.
Coach, this is so bad. Like it just has so many chapters to it.
Yes. I mean, the same thing was happening to our female athletes and myself, that if they brought that forth, that they felt very uncomfortable, that this was unfair. And they were told that they needed to see counseling and that, they weren't entitled to their First Amendment rights. And that was one of the big things that why Brooke Slusser came out first, our captain on the volleyball team, and such courageous, and then the way they were treating her, the head coach, the administration, the university, that's when I couldn't handle it anymore. I had to protect her and our team.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So Fox News Digital's sports writer Jackson Thompson has written a piece about the whole SJSU saga and them allowing a male athlete to compete in women's volleyball, the drama surrounding transgender athlete Blaire Fleming, and the boycotts that ensued as a result of women saying, no, we do not want to compete against a team with a male athlete. And even women on this person's own team came forward and spoke about what it's like to train with a male athlete, being in fear for their safety.
There's many times for multiple people all the time that we're having to try and dodge the balls that are coming straight at our face. And I've been hit multiple times by the balls, and I've had bruising on my legs just from trying to dodge it, and it catches my thigh, and I've had a bruise on my thigh for weeks.
And also not agreeing with a male athlete competing in a women's competition. So the report spoke about a third-party investigation commissioned by the Mountain West Conference into the alleged plot to hurt a female athlete with a severe spike, and it was believed to be targeted towards Brooke Slusser. This is a woman who came forward, a woman on Blaire Fleming's team, who came forward speaking about how she wasn't even informed that this person is male, speaking about sharing accommodation with this person, hotel rooms with this person, all the while not knowing that she was sharing accommodation with a male athlete. And people had their suspicions, but they were told that they shouldn't speak about it.
But Slusser says the two have never had a conversation about her teammate being transgender. Instead, she referred to it as the elephant in the room and says the university told her and other teammates not to bring it up.
I just don't think it's right in women's sports. It has nothing to do with the way someone wants to live their life day to day. That's not an issue. I think live the way you want to live. But just when it comes to the fairness and safety of women playing, there's a reason that there's two different divisions for men and women.
The university didn't inform the women, didn't inform the female athletes because of privacy reasons. So people may have wondered whatever came of the allegations that are very serious. There were women who came forward, witnesses who came forward. I believe at least 5 volleyball players came forward. It was alleged that Blaire Fleming was colluding with a player from Colorado State to execute this plot, all targeted towards Brooke Slusser. So the article highlights how there were some issues with the investigation. Until this day, people have questions. People question whether the investigation was thorough enough. Ultimately, there was found to be no plot. And of course, after the game in question, between SJSU and Colorado State, nothing came of it. Brooke Slusser was fine. And so that was the end of it. But till this day, questions remain. And this Fox News Digital article, it does highlight the questions that still remain. But what's also interesting is the Trump administration have actually weighed into this, because SJSU are still under investigation into their handling of the whole situation. Their decision to allow a male athlete to compete on a women's volleyball team, them ignoring the concerns of the female athletes. And also, this led to the firing of a female coach because she simply came forward wanting an investigation into violations against Title IX, which she had every right to do. She spoke up in defense of the female athletes, and she was punished. She was first suspended, and again, that's just a euphemism for being fired, and after that, she was officially let go. She spoke up in defense of the female athletes. She gave some insight into what it's like for them being on a team with a male athlete, and she spoke about her concerns that were ignored, even by her colleagues. The other coach seemed to prioritize the desires of the male athlete and ignore the concerns and the safety issues surrounding having a male player on the team. So Tim Heapy was the one who was hired on behalf of Wilkie, Farr and Gallagher, a law firm that was commissioned by the Mountain West Conference to be a third party who would investigate the alleged plot. So this was into allegations against San Jose State's transgender volleyball player Blaire Fleming of conspiring with an opponent to harm a teammate. Heapy carried this out in the same month that other partners in his law firm worked to protect Fleming's eligibility to compete in women's college volleyball. Heapy later offered the school legal counsel to help it navigate a federal Title IX investigation over the same situation. The offer was declined. So this was back in November of last year. Fleming, the trans athlete at the centre of a national controversy last fall, was accused in a Title IX complaint of discussing plans to have teammate Brooke Slusser spiked in the face during a game against Colorado State on October 3. Slusser told Fox News Digital she previously had a concussion in her junior year of 2023. Obviously, the more concussions one experiences, the more likelihood that you could suffer from long-term damage. And obviously, if you do play volleyball and certain, specific sports, you do have to take the risk of experiencing a concussion. That's just a risk that I'm sure they accept. But there's a difference between experiencing a blow to the head as a result of playing against another female and that as a result of playing against a male player who can hit the ball a lot harder. And we know that women are more likely to be severely injured when competing against male athletes. So Brooke said, "It could have possibly ended my career or really affected me long term because my first concussion was so bad, sometimes just getting bonked in the head by a serve, which is not even that bad, would make me a little dizzy sometimes. So it did scare me if I did even get another little minor concussion, how it would affect me." That was her concern. So as we know, she wasn't spiked during the October 3 game. However, there was an allegation by an SJSU teammate who claimed she witnessed Fleming conspiring with an opposing player to hurt Brooke Slusser. And that did prompt the Mountain West Conference to launch an official investigation. Remember, the other head coach, Todd Kress, alluded to the whole thing being a joke, that the alleged conversation between Fleming and Malaya Jones of Colorado State, that wasn't to be taken seriously. It was just them joking around. And I believe this was after him denying that it ever occurred in the first place. But when people came forward saying that they witnessed, this alleged plot being planned, he said, "Oh, well, it's just a joke." Heapy corresponded with Dustin May, University Counsel for California State University and San Jose State University, to coordinate interviews as seen in public records obtained by Fox News Digital. So an email sent to San Jose State Athletics Director Jeff Konya said the following: "The Mountain West has hired the law firm of Wilkie, Farr and Gallagher to conduct a review of the allegations. Attorney Timothy Heapy is taking the lead on this investigation and is copied here." An email was also sent to Todd Kress and former assistant coach Melissa batie-smoose. Heapy previously served as the chief investigative counsel to the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee to investigate the J6 Capitol protests. And this same law firm did represent the Mountain West Conference after some female athletes sought an injunction to get the conference to ban Fleming from competing, further within the women's category and to restore records that were affected by the inclusion of a male athlete into the women's category. They wanted them to restore records and to put the schools back to where they should be. And unfortunately, they lost that injunction. Fleming was allowed to continue competing in the conference. They didn't progress to actually play the NCAA championships. They didn't progress further. Colorado State University went on to progress. And this was in the same month that they were conducting their investigation into the alleged plot. The request for a preliminary injunction was filed November 13, at which time Heapy and May were in the process of coordinating interviews with witnesses for the investigation. And there were several, I believe 5 witnesses who came forward. The firm's legal battle to keep the trans athlete in the women's tournament was successful, as we know. And this is the same law firm who announced the legal victory for the Mountain West Conference. It's no longer on their website, but the archived data shows the original press release, and it said, Wilkie secured a high-profile win for Collegiate Athletic Conference Mountain West Conference in a suit brought by members of San Jose State University's women's volleyball team and other Mountain West teams that played against SJSU. So 3 days after the email was sent informing SJSU of the investigation ended up closing. So the investigation didn't go on for that long. They did interview the 5 witnesses, but it didn't include Melissa batie-smoose nor Brooke Slusser. Apparently they declined to interview with investigators. Now, some issues with the investigation is that there were some inaccuracies. They kept saying that the plot was for an October 2 game, when Colorado State and SJSU were not playing against each other. They played against each other on October 3. And, it's like, if you don't even have the dates right, what game are you investigating? How can we be confident that you were even investigating the right game when you don't even have the dates right? And it was a mistake that was repeated in these documents. Email correspondence between Heapy, May, and Konya, and Wilkie Farr and Gallagher, associate Fiona Carroll, repeatedly incorrectly dated the SJSU versus Colorado State game as taking place October 2, as seen in public records. The game was played October 3. A November 15 letter obtained by Fox News Digital, sent by the Mountain West to both universities announcing the investigation closed without finding sufficient evidence, also incorrectly dated the game as October 2. So they said that there wasn't sufficient evidence, and that's why they closed the investigation. In the Mountain West's letter announcing the investigation closed, the conference stated, quote, there is insufficient evidence to corroborate the allegations of misconduct. Later adding, quote, the conference office has determined no disciplinary action is warranted and considers the matter closed. So this is, a third-party investigation, but obviously this law firm is looking out for the Mountain West Conference because it's the same law firm involved in their injunction case. So it's not a neutral third party, in my opinion. If they're representing the Mountain West Conference in the injunction case, when an injunction was sought against them, this was the law firm that was hired to fight it. Slusser's attorney, William Bock, of the Independent Council on Women's Sports, responded to the conference closing the investigation in a November 17 statement, calling the investigation, quote, inadequate and anything but thorough. All such evidence should be immediately and publicly disclosed along with the full written investigative report of the Mountain West Conference's investigator, the statement added. No evidence was ever disclosed by the conference, as Fleming went on to finish out the season, earn all conference honours, and even led SJSU all the way to the Mountain West Championship game. The trans athlete travelled and roomed alongside female teammates to Las Vegas in the final week of November for the tournament. Brooke Slusser said that they all had Thanksgiving dinner together. They obviously were made to continue rooming with this person. They didn't get a say. It's like the university did nothing to address any of the concerns of the female athletes. Nothing whatsoever. This person was accepted as being a female athlete. Till this day, they've not admitted that this person is male or transgender, due to privacy reasons. Even during the injunction court case, the judge said, let's just say it as it is for clarity reasons. This is a male athlete. The judge had to remind them that we need to deal with facts here. So remember, Boise State forfeited the semi-final game. So SJSU automatically advanced. Boise forfeited twice. And remember, they never gave reasons why they were forfeiting. It was obvious why they were forfeiting. And Nevada, I believe, were the only team who specifically had to spell it out because the university released statements on their behalf. The university committed to games on their behalf, even though they didn't want to play against a team with a male player. So the girls released their own statement and they spoke about the importance of defending women's sports or fairness in women's sports. So the school panicked. Remember all of that? These girls have really been through it. The female athletes on the teams who boycotted, the female athletes on Blaire Fleming's team who didn't agree with the school allowing a male athlete to be on their team, even though it kind of gave them the advantage, they were not for it. They've really been through it. Not to mention the infringement upon their First Amendment rights, not even being allowed to speak about this matter. And we must never forget what these female athletes were put through.
I feel like there's so many emotions that go into all of it, like anger, sadness, like regret, just like of all schools for me to end up at, why this one?
And it's still being investigated, thankfully. And even the Trump administration has weighed into this and spoken about the importance of protecting women's sports. So Jackson Thompson gave a brief interview speaking about this with Outkick.
Feel to you like with a new president in office, and I'm reading context clues about them taking that statement down from their website and everything else, that maybe that part of the argument has shifted to, well, if we make these people ineligible that want to play in women's sports, that's now the route to not get sued and not face legal problems given the new administration. Has the tide turned at all, I guess is what I'm asking with this.
That's probably the route most schools would want to take at this point. And I think the main reason why is because President Trump has made an example out of SJSU and UPenn, for that matter, about the Leah Thomas situation a few years ago. His administration has launched investigations into both schools. We've already seen some funding has been cut to UPenn. And now I have a statement from President Trump's White House from earlier today addressing my report about this issue. It says, President Trump is committed to ending the dangerous and unfair participation of men in women's sports and restoring common sense. President Trump will continue to speak out and take immediate action against schools that are jeopardizing the safety of female athletes. And his administration has really reinforced that. They're in a lawsuit against Maine over their policies that allow trans athletes to compete in sports. And back in April, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt brought up the possibility of officials who continue to allow trans athletes to compete in women's sports facing prosecution. I've spoken to Riley Gaines, who supports this idea. A couple other folks I've talked to support this idea on as far as women's rights activists. And now President Trump is doing everything he can to make an example out of the schools like SJSU and UPenn so far that have allowed this to happen.
Fleming's collegiate career officially ended November 30 as SJSU lost against Colorado State. Remember, Trump came into office, signed his executive order, and soon after launched an investigation into SJSU, which we all applauded, of course. And this law firm, HEP in particular, seems very enthusiastic in dealing with these matters related to, executive orders and investigations into transgender policies. This law firm seems very willing to help out schools who insist on allowing male athletes to compete in women's categories. So HEP also reached out to Dustin May, remember the University Council for California State University and San Jose State University, to help with any issues related to the investigation, but May declined. After May declined, EP responded the next day writing, "Please let me know if we can help in any way on this or other issues." So the Department of Education's investigation into SJSU and its handling of the situation is still ongoing. So we await the conclusion of that investigation. Hopefully, they will be held accountable. Brooke Slusser said that the night before the game in question, where the alleged plot was due to take place, one of her teammates approached her with a warning after the teammate received a text message. One of my teammates got a DM basically saying that she and then my team needed to keep my distance from me on game day against Colorado State because it wasn't going to be a good situation for me to be in, and that my team needed to keep their distance. It's unclear whether the warning stemmed from Fleming's alleged plan to have Slusser spiked in the face. When players arrived at Moby Arena for that game, there was a notable police presence with several officers stationed throughout the venue. And Melissa batie-smoose said that she actually had concerns about Fleming's intentions from very early on, even before she was informed about the allegations. I think when she caught wind of the allegations, she wasn't surprised. Obviously, Brooke Slusser really put herself on the line coming forward. She was accused of outing this person and basically accused of being the one who was targeting and harassing, all of that. And even after everything concluded, she had issues on campus and she was in fear for her safety. So she went back to Texas, back to her hometown to finish off her education there, remotely, because it wasn't possible for her to remain on campus and feel safe. During that October 3 game, Fleming led with 10 errors as San Jose State lost in straight sets. Melissa batie-smoose said that Fleming didn't even look her in the eye. In one set, I called blocking. Blaire was not looking at me, would not even give me eye contact, and kept setting up the block wrong. Didn't follow the game plan. Fleming wouldn't look at me, wouldn't acknowledge me. So then I told Cress, I know this is crazy, but I think that she's throwing the match and she's definitely not listening to a word I'm saying about blocking. Now, I had my suspicions. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And these male players, they have been known to throw games, to throw particular races and competitions, picking and choosing. Close to the end of that set was when Fleming overpassed the serve right on top of the net for Malaya to hit towards Brooke Slusser. And then those two were kind of always doing eye contact and making smirks up to that point. But then, when that happened, they both laughed and Fleming said, "Thank you." And that's when Blaire blew her a kiss, batie-smoose alleged. Remember, part of the plot was to throw the game. It turns out maybe, allegedly, the game was thrown, but the other half of the plot, which was to spike Brooke in the face, didn't occur. Thankfully. And then I turned to Cress and I said, don't you see this interaction? This blank that's going on? I was like, you would take anybody else out for a third of those errors. And apparently he was more concerned about Fleming, saying, this is so horrible for Blaire. All this stuff is taking a toll on Blaire. I feel for her. And I was just like, this is crazy. Wow. So that's some insight into what happened during that game. batie-smoose claimed she then learned about the misconduct allegations against Fleming from another player on the team when the team returned to San Jose after the game. So a lot was going on around that time. batie-smoose's home was shot at. You could see holes, bullet holes, in her kitchen window. And she had to leave her own home for her safety. Police said it was a pellet gun, which obviously is still very dangerous. And they, as far as I'm aware, haven't found the person responsible. But obviously it sent a clear message because she spoke out in defense of female athletes. It's as simple as that. And Brooke finished her degree Well done, Brooke. She finished it at home in Texas. And Brooke continues to speak out. Slusser has become a recurring speaker in her home state's legislature, advocating on behalf of bills that would grant protections for women and women's spaces from biological male transgender people. Fox News Digital reached out to the Mountain West Conference, the law firm, Malaya Jones, and have received no response. Jones transferred to SMU after the end of last season. So all we have now is to see what comes of the investigation by the Department of Education into SJSU. And I hope that they are finally held accountable. Accountable for what they did to the female athletes, including Brooke Slusser, and what they did to the associate head coach, Melissa batie-smoose, who did nothing but show concern for the female athletes and what they were being put through. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.